I still have void form of 36. Please, 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 I might actually kind of do it right. Please soak that fucking swirl. I don't give a fuck. Oh my. Dude, I entered void form incorrectly. Alright, dispersing the mistake. I can save it. I can save this. Save my void form! No, I dropped it! No, it's all over! I delete myself.
Why?
I dispersed the damage. Alright, that's good. I fucking fucked up the void eruption! I fucked up the void eruption. I'm gonna lose the void form now. Oh, dude, I fucked up the most easiest thing ever! I did the hard part! No, I actually did... I literally fucking scuffed all my COI stacks. They're all gone. Yikes! Scary. That's so fucking scary. I can pull that off and scuff doggy? Like, what the fuck? Alright, I need to drop. Dropping. It's dispersing. It's perfect. It's perfect. It's perfect. It's perfect. It's perfect. It's perfect. I got it. Yes, it's literally perfect. Fuck you. Fuck you, game. I win the game. I win the game while drinking. Fuck you. That's a perfect lust. Who lusted that as a... I owe them my life. It's an awesome lust. Awesome fucking lust, dude. That was scary. That was a lot of black shit there. Oh my god. Missed void bolts for sure. Definitely missed some.
5 seconds.
Nope, nope.
No.
Nope. Well, anyone but me.
Okay, somebody get in that hasn't done it.
Not gonna ruin that fucking shit for me, dude. Dude, a 96k surrender, single target? Go fuck off! I wasn't getting in that!
Thank you for... Yeah.
Dude, that was beautiful! You have no idea what I did! Fuck!
Did you record it or no?
Yes, it's totally VODed. Hey, what's up, Shadow Priest buddies? So, today we're gonna do something that's like really fun. We're gonna talk about Surrender to Madness. And I'm gonna shock all you by saying there is a way to play Surrender in 8.3 where it's on par with our standard build. And Shadow Buddy and I have been working on this for a while. He's kind of cracked the code on how to get it to work with the debuff. The way that Surrender works in 8.3 is that it's a 60-second buff. It's a fixed buff. It doesn't matter what your void forms are doing. When that 60 seconds is over, you're stuck 15 seconds with not being able to gain any insanity whatsoever. So you're kind of like dead in the water as far as void forms are concerned. So playing around the 8.3 or BFA version of Surrender is about managing the buff and the debuff. So why am I making this video? Well, this video is being made because it's something to do when you get bored on content. It's super fun to play. It's very, very rewarding. And I promise you'll mess it up about 1,000,000 times before you do it correctly. Part of that, you know, you gotta kind of feel the pain before you can feel the upsides of it. So I don't recommend, you're not going to want to run Surrender on progress fights or anything difficult for you or your team to clear. But if it's like something you're steamrolling through, definitely fun to mess around with it. So today I'm going to teach you how to play it properly to get the most out of it in the BFA version. So let's get into it. Alright, so I talked a little bit about how the BFA version of Surrender works, but I'm gonna kind of go through it a little bit more in detail. It helps to understand how it's working because as you go through this and I might tell you, hey, you know, you're gonna Lucid at this many stacks or surrender at this many stacks, things might not line up for you the way that they need to. So you have to understand how this works so you can kind of check how things are lining up for you and your gear. So up at the top here, I'm going to start with COI. One thing that BFA and Surrender have like a yin and yang like requirement is all around COI. Like everything is about COI. It's not as much direct, it's indirectly void form, but it's more about how void form is leading into COI. So that's what's different between, you know, the Legion version versus the BFA version, because COI is a thing. Very much so. So at the top here, this is a log kind of spliced together in Paintbrush, and it kind of looks like a hot mess, but bear with me. So our COI is starting right where you see this green pop in. And I drew in here, here's a surrender buff for 60 seconds. So everywhere you see this purple is where surrender was active. It's going to be 60 seconds no matter what. So if you notice, I'll jump down to the bottom. You can see this void form here. This was, I think, an 81 stack of void form. I dropped void form, and I still have the surrender buff active. This is going to be very, very important to playing it correctly. But let me kind of go through how to read the rest of this and what's going on. The other important factor is the 15-second debuff. So after surrender expires, it goes into a 15-second debuff, and for that 15 seconds, you cannot get any insanity whatsoever. So what does this mean? As you might have seen from my clips, you're gonna drop void form if you go into it again too quickly. So, if you look at the bottom, we have a void form, we drop it, we still have a surrender, and then we go into a new void form down here at the bottom, and there's a delayed entry into the second void form, and that's gonna be very, very important to master. Before I get into any more detail about it, I wanted to point out the damage profile. I put the damage on here for a reason. If we go back to the beginning of this timeline at the 330 mark, you can see, you know, mostly this damage is around 100k DPS. This is like a spike damage. And that is coming out of the previous void form that I had, which would have been a natural void form. So that's sort of the normal COI damage or DPS that I'm getting in a regular void form situation. And as I start the new void form, you can see that at the top there's some green leftover COI, and that's overlapping with this next void form here. And that's kind of what we're going for with the surrender COI as well. So as we get to the place where we drop the 81 stack of void form, and shortly after that we enter, this is exactly 10 seconds. 10 seconds later I enter a new void form. I still have a lot of COI stacks, and you can see how much bigger the COI is up here, overlapping with this void form. So the more, even though we're climbing a new void form and COI is diminishing, we're overlapping a lot more crit because of how big that previous void form was. So the goal here, or how it's working, is we still want a massive void form with Surrender to Madness. But it's more about that delivery of being COI, and you can see it in the damage here. So if you look right about where this debuff is, where the COI is like the highest, you can see the damage just start to skyrocket, and it just keeps going. And then it peaks right about here, which is, you know, early void form of the following void form. It's probably around that 20 mark, 20 stacks. But it's that overlapping that we have going on. You have Lingering Insanity, you have the Haze from void form, you have COI, everything's stacking up. That's really what this is about. So the key is, if you notice, this is going to be important, this second void form is being entered upon very precisely to minimize this debuff from impacting us. If I go too soon, we're going to drop void form. And if I wait till the 15 seconds is up, well, I mean, you're wasting the COI stacks and not overlapping as much with void form, LI, and everything else. So this gets into that in a little bit more detail. I just want to like focus just on this part, and we're going to work backwards. Think about Surrender as working backwards from this moment. This is everything that matters, is this moment in time where, again, we're dropping the void form. What you want to have here is about 5 seconds remaining on the surrender buff. if you're not, let's just say your void form is going like crazy high, right? And say I could have gotten to 85 stacks. It's better to force dropping at 80 to have 5 seconds remaining on your buff. This is important. You want to disperse the damage, by the way, especially with corruption. I have corruption with this damage will one-shot you. But what's important is this 5 seconds is meant to allow you to build 100 insanity. Because if you don't build it while you still have the surrender buff, then you're going to be waiting to build it later. So it's very important to drop void form, okay? Build a full bar of insanity, but do not void eruption yet. This is what is the hardest thing to break the habit, at least for me. Because you see void eruption, you instantly want to press it, but you have to make sure that you do not void eruption until there's 10 seconds remaining on your debuff. So that's the pink one, the debuff. So again, I'll put that over here. Void eruption at about 10 seconds remaining. And in order for you to know if you did it correctly, you should see the big void form from the surrender void form, and the beginning of the next one should be about 8 to 10 seconds. If it's longer than that, something went wrong. If it can be 8 seconds, and the reason for that is like you can technically drop that surrender void form with 3 seconds remaining. Just remember that you're going to be dispersing. You need time for the disperse. You need time to cancel. You're going to want to cancel weak aura for that. And you need time to hopefully crit a few times and build up that bar of 100 insanity. It's so important to do that. The safe route is 5. I have pulled off 3, but it was like an accident. If you shoot for 3, it's very likely that it's going to go poorly for you. So shoot for dropping void form with about 5 seconds left on that buff. Because you don't want to not get that void eruption primed and ready to go. It's very critical. So feel free to play with those timings, but that's like the general rule of thumb. And again, you can go back to your logs later and you can check, just check the gap between these two things. Were you able to re-enter void form successfully without dropping it? And it should be about 8 to 10 seconds apart. So let's talk about how do we get the big void form and roughly what are we looking for. So the surrender void form is going to be where we put all of our cooldowns. That's going to be surrender, that's going to be pet, that's going to be lucid dreams, major. There is another build for CLF. I'll give some information on that later, but for now let's just focus on like what I'm calling the standard surrender build, which is lucid. And we're going to push this void form as big as possible, but allowing us to have the overlap of the 60 seconds to have 5 seconds remaining to allow us to fill our insanity bar again. So for me and my gear, the sweet spot was surrendering at 26, 27 stacks. If you have less stats than me, you know, you could be looking at like 25 stacks. And if you're trying this for the first time, I recommend you start anywhere from even as low as 20 stacks if you need to. It's better to surrender on the early side as you learn where your limits are, because you can always drop void form early if you need to. If you do surrender too late, then you're going to have a bad time. So for me, the magic number is 25 to 27 stacks. I'm going to pet at 35 to 40 seconds remaining on the buff. So at this point, I'm not looking at how many stacks of void form I have. I'm looking at my weak aura that says how many seconds remaining on surrender, because I'm trying to time it for the end of the surrender buff. So I'm going to pet at anywhere between 35 and 40 seconds remaining on the surrender buff. And then I'm going to lucid 20 to 25 seconds remaining on, again, the surrender buff itself. That's the range that's been working for me. So I have done anywhere in that range and I've seen varying results. I mean, you're stacking a buff, a void form, and 3 CDs. So you can see how tedious it can be to get everything to kind of pan out perfectly. So as you play with it yourself, you're going to learn what your sweet spots are. Especially with your gear, like crit and haste definitely play a big role in this as well. And trinkets, you know, do you have a Vita trinket, stuff like that. So putting this all together, this is the total picture on how to play Surrender. From all of our cooldowns into getting into this prime moment that matters, which is where I drew these 2 little arrows here. So again, surrendering 25 to 27 stacks, pet 35 to 40 seconds remaining, and so on. And again, super important. I'm looking at my weak aura and I'm like, okay, you know, I'm at 80 stacks, 85. I've gotten as far as 85 stacks and made it work out. 75 stacks wouldn't be terrible if you're trying this for the first time, so, you know, don't feel bad if you have a 75 stack. So a correct Lucid driven surrender void form, you know, shoot for 75 to 85 stacks total. But the important part isn't that. It's drop void form, any means necessary, when there's 5 seconds left of that buff, build up your insanity bar, and then you're holding that void eruption. You better hold it. If you don't, you cannot save it. I promise you, it's mathematically impossible. That's also been verified. It looks like you can, but you cannot save it. And when there's about 10-11 seconds left of that debuff, now you can void eruption, and for the first, you know, 10 stacks of that void form, you have no inbound insanity, but you're not going to drop. You can finally get insanity right when you're gonna drop, and it's not even that scary whatsoever. If you stick with that 10-11 second rule, it'll pan out, I promise. Alright, so weak auras and stuff. Here's what I found was needed to kind of make all this stuff work. You want, obviously, to have lucid dreams and also a CLF major. There's 2 different versions of this. I've kind of gone over in detail the lucid version. Get used to the lucid version and comfortable with it. I'll put the timings for the CLF version, because by the time you touch CLF, you should just be a surrender expert at that point. So put that in the description rather than doing a whole full-blown like paintbrush on that one. But you want to have those 2 majors available to you, at least lucid for doing the initial build. And you're gonna need a surrender buff and debuff weak aura. I will share mine and tweak it as you need to. It's very important that don't feel bad if you want to tailor that weak aura to yourself. Like, whatever you gotta do to make it obvious for you. I did the color coding based on my timings. You can go mess with them if you want to make them change different colors at different times if your gear is not supporting the stacks that I had laid out. But it should be pretty close. I recommend a cancel dispersion macro. You can double tap it in game. I think it's sloppy. They didn't have that feature in Legion. So I've always had a cancel weak aura that I put with my void bolt. In the case of the surrender build, I had to do a cancel dispersion macro built into my Mind Blast, Shadow Word Void, whatever. Whatever spell, because if you don't want to accidentally void eruption too early to cancel your dispersion, so that's why I had to build in a macro into Shadow Word Void. And I highly recommend a double shot of rum or whiskey while you learn how to play. That's very important for the rum and whiskey. Practice a lot. I was practicing in LFR. I went back to LFR and it was worth doing. The fights are really long, and it's kind of cool to like try to make things work in a chaotic environment, or just in your weekly guild, maybe alt runs or whatever. Don't be afraid to practice. Practice on a dummy first, and then even when you got it nailed down, I promise, as soon as you step foot in a raid, it's all going to go to shit. So plan on practicing a whole lot. And if you want to check how you're doing with it, go back into logs and check between the big dick surrender void form and your second void form. What is the space and time in between when it ended and the next one? It should be about 8 to 10 seconds. And if it wasn't, then you have room to improve. If you get it in that 8 to 10 second window, then you should see performance close to the standard build, a regular, you know, Legacy of the Void build. Alright, that's going to be it for now. Thanks for checking out the video. And if you ever want to check me out, I do have a Twitch. I stream a lot of times, both my Mythic raid and also my junk raids and shenanigans that I do on off nights. If you get bored, feel free to check out the VODs if you can't catch me. 8 Eastern, well 7:30, 8 Eastern roughly is when I usually stream. Not every day, but whenever. I mean, it's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, sometimes Friday, I don't know, just most days of the week I'm usually streaming something. You can come laugh at me, scuff Lucids, and bang my head against my desk harshly as I teach myself how to not suck at the game. And other than that, I hope I taught you guys something new and give you something cool to play with while we wait for Shadowlands. Later.
Sorry. So,
Literally, it's perfect! It's perfect! It's perfect! I got it! I got it! I got it!
Yeah.
It's literally fucking amazing. It's literally perfect.
Oh fuck.
Grip me! Grip me! I'm gonna die. Oh my god.
So
I love you. You fucking saved my life! I had nothing to get out of that. Fucking slow. Holy shit, dude! He fucking totally saved. Totally fucking saved my fucking life, dude. It's funny how I say grip me and he knew it was me, as opposed to like some other random person.